The Railway Preservation Society of Ireland has been in Whitehead since 1966. Very appropriate location for us because it's a railway town, and it was developed by Belfast Northern Counties Railway around the turn of the last century. Whitehead is very important to us because it's got a link with Northern Ireland Railways, so we can take our trains from here out onto the main line. This is where the engines stay, and when they're not working on the main line, then we can show them off to the public at close quarters. This platform upon which we're standing is the excursion platform, built to accommodate excursion trains from Belfast, bringing thousands of people at weekends down to Whitehead for a breath of sea air and a walk along the Gobbins and promenade in Whitehead. The excursion station was built here in 1907. Now it's been developed a couple of times since then, but it's still basically the same shape. You can look at old maps and people can imagine that they're in Edwardian times walking up and down the platform here. It encompasses, we've got a signal cabin that is a period-style signal cabin. We've got a station building which is modelled on the old White Abbey station, the Lanyon building, which is part of an earlier round of grant funding from GROW, generating rural opportunities within East Antrim. We've done this station building out as a period piece station waiting room cafe, and we have a cafe restaurant in the station building. You don't have to come to the museum to come to the cafe. You can come for a cup of tea, coffee and a lunch here. We're open Thursday, Friday and Saturday each week. As well as being Whitehead Excursion Station, it is also the home of the Whitehead Railway Museum, which the Society has developed over the past 5 or 6 years. We were very fortunate to get funding from Heritage Lottery Fund and Tourism Northern Ireland, and we got a package of 3.1 million to develop our museum, which gave the Society a new lease of life here. It gives us a chance to show off all our historical engines, carriages, exhibits, and for people to see the story of the railways and to see actual restoration work going on in the sheds. We have our workshops here. We have permanent staff, full-time staff, and we also have some apprentices who are learning skills. And then we go on to this building called the Stables. Now the Stables is of historic interest. It's where the horses and carriages from the Gobbins Cliff Path used to be stabled. So we've got an exhibition in there to reflect the social history of the railways, how the railways changed society, how they developed towns, how they developed travel and commerce, and every industry benefited from the railways. They were the go-to means of transport for many, many years. From there, the tour takes us into the locomotive shed. We can actually see large engines on display, almost within touching distance, and we can have an impression of the grandeur of those engines from 1930s, 1940s. Steam engines always turn heads when they're going through the countryside. When we're going to Portrush or Dublin, we always get away from people as we pass. But then to come to Whitehead and actually be able to see the engines close up is something really, really impressive. So when we're showing visitors around, they are wowed by the experience. When the Society was founded in 1964, we decided we'd need to gather as many steam engines as we could. We have now amassed 10 engines. We operate out of Belfast and out of Dublin as well. So we would have about 3 engines in operation at any given time. It's quite a big job getting an engine into service. We have to do boiler work, put in boiler tubes. We have to do axles, wheels. Sometimes we have to make new parts. So one of the features of the Whitehead Railway Museum is that we have a foundry here, and we can cast parts that we need to replace missing components for various engines, and that makes restoration very possible. But it can take 4 or 5 years to go from scratch to getting an engine fully restored, and then we would get about 6-7 years life out of it before it needs to go through the restoration process again. So it's an interesting challenge, but it's one which our volunteers and full-time staff are happy to take on, and we're hoping to keep those skills alive and be able to pass them down to coming generations. The engine's behind me, that's number 171 Sleeve Galleon, dating originally from 1913, and it used to haul the express trains Belfast to Dublin. On my left is number 85, which is owned by the National Museums Northern Ireland. It's unknown to us, but it's operating our Portrush Flyer train this summer. Built in 1932, and it was the next generation of express engine on the Dublin line. So standing here we have 2 generations of Great Northern Express engine, and hopefully later this year we'll have a 3rd generation, because we also have an engine that was built in 1901 and hasn't operated for 50 years, but we're managing to put number 31 back together, and she's due to undergo further tests this year. So that'll give us 3 generations of engines that used to run the express trains from Belfast to Dublin. And these engines are driven by Northern Ireland Railway's Irish Rail when they're on the main line, but we get them ready, we organise the trains. Standing behind me is number 3 BG, and it's called Guinness, and it used to operate in the Guinness Brewery in Dublin, built in 1919 by Hudswell Clark in Leeds, and it was actually the first engine the Society obtained, because Guinness Brewery kindly gave it to the Society in 1965, just after we'd been set up. Used to operate in Dublin, hauling the kegs of stout from the brewery to Kingsbridge Station in those days, now Houston. And it used to run along the streets of Dublin, so it did its lifetime service then was superseded by lorries. We got it, and it was a tremendous feather in our cap at the time to get the Guinness engine. Now, interestingly, she always faced the other way round for the entirety of her existence here until last year, when, thanks to Whitehead Railway Museum's development, we got a turntable, so we can actually turn the engine round, and we decided she looked prettier this way round, so we've turned her round. So all the photographs that people took years ago, they can come back now and do another one of it facing the other direction. At Whitehead here, we've only got a short length of track, but what we do is run train rides on special occasions. So it gives people a little flavour of what it was like to travel on a steam train. And we don't go very far or very fast, but you can hear the noise of the engine, and you can smell that unique blend of oil and steam and smoke. So it gives people that genuine railway experience and whets their appetite for one of our bigger trips, maybe to Portrush or Dublin. And it's a chance for people to look at the footplate as well and see the fireman and the driver. Keeps history alive, keeps that railway experience alive. When we're actually out on the tracks to Portrush or Dublin, we have the engine driver and fireman and inspector come from Northern Ireland Railways, and they've been trained how to drive steam engines, and they're very enthusiastic about their job as well. And it's a great team effort between the RPSI and the NIR people when we go to Portrush. and it certainly attracts the public. Our Portrush Flower season in August sold out completely at the end, so we didn't have a spare seat on the train. There's quite a tremendous effort goes into putting a steam engine out onto the road. In fact, one of the little questions we have for the school kids here at the museum is how long does it take a steam engine to get ready, and the answer is about 5 hours. And the other question is how long does it take a diesel engine, and it's like about 1 minute. So quite a distinct difference. But it's a labour of love for our volunteers who get the engine ready in the small hours of the morning. It takes about 5 hours for the steam engine to get up steam. Then it has to be oiled and cooled, and the engine made ready for the trip. Then the carriages have to be checked as well. Our trains always have a special atmosphere on board because it's a sense of a little party atmosphere. I always think going up to Portrush or down to Dublin, and people are there for a day out. So they intend to get a good convivial atmosphere going on the train. The carriages are 1970s, so they're older than the existing modern NIR stock. So they do give a flavour of a travel of yesteryear. It's now about 50 years since steam trains finished operation in Northern Ireland, so it's a new generation is now growing to appreciate steam trains, and we operate Halloween trains, Santa trains, and a new generation of children coming down to Whitehead to see the trains in operation. The railways played a key role in our history, in not just in Ireland but across the world. And I think nowadays it's still a rarity for people to be able to get onto a steam train. I've been so pleased to see the Society develop the way it has over the years. We started as a very small group, not certain that we were even going to get operating on the main line within another 5 years. But here we are, 52 years on from when the Society set up its base here in Whitehead, and we are operating mainline trains. We now have this Whitehead Railway Museum, which is a real boost to the whole Society, because at last we have an opportunity to show off the exhibits that have been tucked away in the sheds, away from public view. So I'm so excited by the potential this museum has, and I think we're going to really go places now.